Guys, we are finally here. We have finally reached a point where we are going to sit down and talk about X Factor Endgame. Now, this is one heck of a story arc because we are talking about the idea of X Factor going up against Apocalypse. Now, yes, they have fought against him before, but this time it's completely different. And the reason why, because Apocalypse has a plan, and that plan is all about Nathan Summers, the son to Cyclops and Madeline Pryor. Apocalypse got some big plans for him. Now, when it comes to Endgame, it's so important that other books down the road are going to tie back into this book later on to kind of give us the complete origin of Cable when it comes to X-Men comics. That's how important Endgame is. Like, it's so important in so many different ways. Let's go ahead and dive into this. Now, in the opening pages of this book, we do see Cyclops and Beast begin to freak out. And the reason why, because, well, their aircraft known as the ship is somewhat malfunctioning. Now, when it comes to the ship, we have learned so far that it was actually created by the Celestials a long time ago, but you didn't have Apocalypse being able to take over the ship. Now, something else I should mention is that when it comes to the ship, is being run by an AI system. But either way, when it comes to the ship, it was being used by Apocalypse until our heroes were actually able to free it from his control. And ever since then, the ship has been the base for X Factor for a very long time. But out of nowhere, you had the power in the ship just go off. And for our heroes, they're kind of wondering why. Now, for the ship, it's able to fix itself. And so then our heroes are kind of like, hey, you know what? Go ahead and make sure that everything is okay with you while we go ahead and continue on with our training session. Now, while you have our heroes going through their training session, they don't realize that they're being watched by Apocalypse, but also they're being watched by a new group of characters that are working for Apocalypse. And that would be the Dark Riders. Now, over time in our coverage in X-Men comics, we're going to learn more about this particular group of characters who do work for Apocalypse. But for right now, we do learn their names. You have Foxbat, Tusk, Gauntlet, Synapse, Hard Drive, and Barrage. Now, for Hard Drive, she is somewhat more important here. And here is the reason why. See, Hard Drive is actually hacking into the system of the ship to hopefully take over the ship completely and begin Apocalypse's true plans for X Factor in their ship. And so for our heroes, they have no idea what is happening behind the scenes. Now, something else I do want to mention is that when it comes to Cyclops, he's being real tough on the team recently. And the reason why, because, well, the extension agenda, but really more because in his entire career, he has seen so many different people die over time being an X-Men or a member of X Factor. And so for him, he's kind of tired of the idea of seeing so many people dying. And so he says, listen, the reason why that last session right there for training was so hard is to make sure that we are ready to protect ourselves, but other people who need our protection. Now, there is another character that does play a small role in this storyline, and that will be Charlotte Jones. Now, Charlotte Jones was actually a love interest for Archangel around his time in Marvel Comics. You see, when it came to Charlotte, she was married to a police officer who unfortunately died in a drug war. And so because of that, she quit being a nurse and became a police officer because she hated the idea of helping criminals get better. But there was a time period where she was able to meet Archangel and they were able to build a bond with one another. And we're going to see her appear here and there throughout this story. And really, the next few pages really does focus on the love interest for each of our team members here. So for example, the next page really do focus on Cyclops and Jean Grey getting their relationship back on track. And then after them, we do see that Iceman is still with Opal around his time in Marvel Comics. Now, unfortunately, for Beast, he did have a love interest around this time in Marvel Comics. The problem was that him and Trish Tilby, they would always go back and forth between if they would get together or not. If they did get together, would they stay together? It was an up and down relationship. And so right now, we see Beast watching her on the news, giving out another report to kind of remind us that Beast does have somebody. It's just that right now, he can't be with her. But now it's time for us to get into the action of the story. So we do pick up with Jean Grey, Cyclops, and Beast, who are the only 3 members of X Factor right now at the main base for the team, the ship. Archangel and Iceman are currently away from the base to spend some time with their girlfriends. And so for our 3 heroes who are at the base, well, they realize they're being attacked by the Dark Riders. Now, I want to shift our focus over to Jean Grey. And here is the reason why. So we had to remember that around his time in Marvel Comics, Jean Grey no longer had the ability to be a telepath for a very long time in X Factor Comics. This is the moment where she does regain that ability. You see, she is confronted by one of the Dark Riders known as Synapse. Now, when it comes to Synapse, he takes Jean Grey into the astral plane, and his main goal is to take her out, except while doing battle against her on the astral plane, he was able to give her the ability back of being a telepath. And really, that was not his goal, but it happened on accident. And so because she was able to regain that ability, she was able to mind link with the rest of X Factor. And so that is how Iceman and Archangel learns, hey, we're being attacked right now at the main base. Get back over here to help us out. Now, for our heroes, they do come back together to fight against the Dark Riders. And really, for our heroes, they are able to take down the Dark Riders. Now, at first, it does look like our heroes are going to struggle, and also does look like Jean Grey is out of the battle because Synapse. We kind of find out that she was actually able to defeat him on the astral plane, and then after a while, she was able to join back in the battle against the Dark Riders. And so once you have our heroes being able to take them down, they believe that now they can rest. But here comes the big problem though. You see, Hard Drive in this entire chapter has been trying her best to connect to the ship. And by this point of the story, she was able to do that. And so now she's putting in a virus that is going to infect the entire ship. And so for our heroes, they have no idea that things are about to get a whole lot worse. But as we dive into the second chapter of this video, we actually pick up with different heroes of the Marvel Universe trying their best to protect the innocent people in Manhattan. And the reason why? Because of Hard Drive's virus. You see, that virus had made the ship begin to attack the entire city around it right now. And so innocent people's lives are in danger. Other heroes have to step in. Now, here's the big thing about the idea of the ship right now causing a lot of damage. You see, when it came to our heroes, when they had decided to place a ship in the middle of New York, in the middle of Manhattan, a lot of people were worried about the idea of the ship possibly doing something like this down the road. Because once word got out, the ship was actually being run by an AI system, more and more people got scared of the idea of the ship most likely attacking the city. And here we are now. You have the ship attacking Manhattan left and right. Innocent people's lives are in danger, and other heroes have to step in to help out. But now I want to jump back inside the ship, and really, I want to shift our focus back onto Jean Grey again, because with Jean Grey now being a telepath, she now has to relearn how to use this ability all over again. And so for Jean Grey, she realized that she's now hearing a voice in her head, and the voice that she is hearing is actually the ship calling out for help. But let's not forget that hard drive was able to put a virus inside the ship. And so right now you have the ship begin to attack our heroes as well. Now Jean Grey, she is taken out by hard drive, because once hard drive realized that Jean Grey in the ship had a mind link to one another, you had hard drive use that mind link as a way to attack Jean Grey to take her out. So bam, she's off the board right now. But then Cyclops also hears a voice, and it seems like right now it's the ship once again calling out to our heroes. But now it's saying you need to go to your son, Nathan, Christopher. He's in danger. And so for Cyclops, him and X-Factor head that way to check in on Christopher. Now, when we jump over to Christopher, we do see that one of the members of the Dark Riders was actually able to get into the room that Christopher was at. And it does seem like the young child is about to be taken over to Apocalypse, but that is the moment he is saved by another new character, and her name is Ascani. Now, this is where I say that there's going to be a lot of books that are going to tie back into this moment right here in X-Men comics, because of this character and her clan in the far, far future. And so she came here from that far future to save the life of Christopher. And so she was able to get rid of the one member of the Dark Rider that was trying to kidnap him. Now, after being able to do that, she does feel relieved about the idea that she was able to protect him, except she begins to freak out when X-Factor walks into the room, because to her, she believed that they were also members of the Dark Riders, and they were there to grab Christopher. And so she attacked him. And then after her attack, she realized that she had made a huge mistake. But the problem is, by the time she realized in her mistake, well, when it comes to Christopher, he was grabbed by the Dark Rider that she had knocked out earlier, and he was able to leave with Christopher and take him straight over to Apocalypse. Now, after she realized that she had made a huge mistake, you have Ascani also leave as well. Now, for our heroes, they're kind of wondering a lot of things right now. Like, one, why would Apocalypse want Christopher for? And two, who was that woman? Because it seemed like she was actually on our side here. Now, I want to shift our focus back onto Charlotte for a brief moment. And the reason why, because with the ship right now attacking Manhattan all over the place, you now have police officers trying their best to help out where they can. And that includes Charlotte. Now, for Charlotte, she realized that she does have close ties with Archangel, and she wants to know what exactly is going on with the ship. And so she heads over to the base of X-Factor and being able to actually get onto the ship. Now, once she's able to get inside, you did have our heroes tell her, hey, listen, we know it's bad out there right now. And we know the reason why is because our ship. We're trying to tell you right now, there's some kind of virus inside our ship, and we're trying our best to fix it right now before things get a whole lot worse. But here's the thing. You see, even though hard drive was able to upload a virus into the system of the ship, you had a ship right now trying its best to fight back against hard drive's virus. Now, the ship knows that this is a losing battle, but here's the catch though. The ship also does not want to be a slave to Apocalypse again, like it was in the past before X-Factor was able to save it from Apocalypse. Now, for the ship, the only way to make sure it does not become a slave for Apocalypse again is to kill itself. And so you had a ship say, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and send all of us up into space and blow up. It's the best way to make sure that I myself does not become a slave for Apocalypse. Now, for our heroes, they tried their best to reason with the ship by saying, don't do that. First off, we're still on the ship right now, which means if you blow up, we are also going to die as well. But also, our heroes have built a bond with the ship. They hate the idea of seeing the ship kill itself because then they lost someone else close to them. But a third and final reason really comes from Cyclops. You see, you have Cyclops say, even though you're telling us that you don't want to be a slave for Apocalypse again, you don't know that this is what he wanted you to do as a way to remove you out of his way of winning, or to make things harder for us when it comes to going against him. Like what you're doing right now is most likely something he wanted you to do. But for the ship, it's kind of like, no, the best option I have right now is to go ahead and remove myself before he's able to use me for his own evil plans down the road. And so by the end of the second chapter, we actually see the ship go up into space and blows up. And we're left to believe that our heroes are now dead. But as we dive into the third chapter of today's video, we kind of find out that our heroes had actually survived, thanks to the ship being able to save its core system and construct a survival module around the X-Factor team. Now, they're still floating in space, but luckily for our heroes, well, the Inhumans were nearby. And so you have the Inhumans being able to bring X-Factor into their own actual ship. Now, once you have our heroes being able to get onto the actual ship of the Inhumans, they're then confronted by the royal family. So like Crystal, Black Bolt, Karnak, Gorgon, Lockjaw, and that's really it. The rest of the royal family and really the rest of the Inhumans are currently prisoners to Apocalypse. And so now we're going to have the royal family and X-Factor work together to basically defeat Apocalypse to save Christopher, but to also save the Inhumans who are currently prisoners to Apocalypse. Now, while you have the two teams trying to work together to make a plan on how they're going to attack Apocalypse, well, that is the moment where you have more members of the Dark Riders being able to teleport into the actual ship of the Inhumans, grab Crystal, and they leave. And so now our heroes are definitely trying to hurry up to take down Apocalypse, to save the Inhumans, but to also save Christopher as well. Now, I want to jump over to Apocalypse, and the reason why, because you have Apocalypse right now looking over the boy Christopher, and this is him kind of telling us that he knows that Christopher can be a very huge problem down the road if he stays alive, or if Apocalypse is not able to find a way to control the young boy. And so for Apocalypse, he's right now considering the idea of killing off Christopher to kind of keep himself alive, or to make sure his plans actually do happen. But then he's told that, hey, we're being under attack at this exact moment. Now, something else I do want to mention is that when it comes to our heroes, they're battling against Apocalypse on the blue area of the moon. The blue area of the moon is this one area where you are actually able to breathe normal without the idea of worrying that you could die while being out there in space. And so for the Inhumans, they were living in that area. And so, of course, Apocalypse took over the area. And now it's our heroes trying to get rid of him. Now, once you have our heroes being able to get inside the actual building of Apocalypse, they go their separate ways. So for the Inhumans, their goal is to free their people so that they're no longer slaves for Apocalypse. And for X-Factor, they're going after Apocalypse to hopefully save Nathan. Now, as our heroes go deeper and deeper into the base of Apocalypse, well, that is when they do realize where they're at. Like, yes, they're on the blue area of the moon, but also this particular area is where Jean Grey had died all those years ago back in the Dark Phoenix saga. Oh wait, that is not true, because let's not forget that we were told in the early days of X Factor that Jean Grey was never the Phoenix, that in reality it was the Phoenix pretending to be Jean Grey, while Jean Grey was actually the bottom of Jamaican Bay being healed up. But either way, by this point in Marvel Comics, she had absorbed the memories of the Phoenix and Madeline Pryor, and so for her, she kind of knows what it was like to die here on the blue area of the moon. Cyclops and Beast, they were there. And so for them, they're kind of like, yeah, this place is very familiar. Now for Archangel and Iceman, they weren't there, but they do know what exactly went down in this area of the moon. But once you have our heroes being able to get to the main room where Apocalypse is at, well, they're confronted by a enormous size Apocalypse, and they also see that Nathan is technically hooked up to Apocalypse. And so for our heroes, they're like, okay, you know what? All gloves off. We got to find a way to take him down to save Christopher before something bad really happens to him. But here's the thing. Something bad is about to happen to Christopher in his story arc. Now, the final chapter, we do pick up with our heroes once again going up against Apocalypse, hoping to bring him down. But before they're able to do that, they gotta fight against his Dark Riders once again. Now, when it comes to his Dark Riders, I feel like personally, they should know how to fight against our heroes a tad bit better by this point, because let's not forget, in the first chapter, they were watching our heroes training in the ship. And so I felt like these guys should know how to fight somewhat better against our heroes by this point of the story. They can't, because our heroes are able to take down the Dark Riders very easily. Now, after doing that, you did have our heroes be attacked by Medusa and Crystal, two Inhumans of the royal family who are currently being controlled by Apocalypse. And so because of those two, the entire X Factor team gets knocked out. Now, luckily for our heroes, they're not held as prisoners for too long, because you didn't have Black Bolt and the rest of the Inhumans reappear to help break them free once again. Now, once you have X Factor being able to get back out of the containers, you have Jean Grey and Hank go and try to save Christopher, while the rest of the team try their best to deal with Apocalypse. Now, this begins the whole idea of us saying goodbye to Christopher as a baby, but then getting into the idea of covering different books explaining how he'll become Cable down the road. Now, while you have Beast and Jean Grey trying to save the young baby, you also have Ascani return into the picture. Now, again, this begins the process of her taking Christopher into the far future as a way to save him, because once you have Beast and Jean Grey able to get to the baby, they realize that Apocalypse had put a virus into the baby. Now, this is the same kind of virus that was given over to the ship. And so right now, our heroes truly believe that there's no way to actually save him. Like, yes, they want to believe there is a way, but unfortunately, they know that most likely there's not a way to save the young boy from this kind of virus. Now, when it comes to young Nathan, he is able to take Jean Grey into his mind. Now, this is Nathan kind of asking Jean Grey to help out to fight against the virus inside of his body. Now, on your screen at this moment, you should see like Apocalypse in his mind. And the reason why, because to the young boy, the virus is Apocalypse, because Apocalypse gave him the virus. And so right now, it's him asking Jean to fight against Apocalypse in his mind, which again is actually the virus. Now, she is able to bring Cyclops also to the mind of young Nathan to help out, but that's the problem though. Even though Cyclops and Jean Grey are able to get rid of the Apocalypse inside his mind, that virus is still going to be there, coming back over and over again, trying to attack the body of young Nathan. And so once we're able to get into the regular world again, you then have Cyclops being able to release a huge amount of energy to get rid of Apocalypse. But now it's time to deal with the idea of what's happening to Nathan. Now, for most fans out there, it's already well known that for Christopher, aka Cable, he was given the techno-organic virus. And so right now he's trying to use his powers and also Jean Grey's powers to keep the virus at bay, because if they don't, that virus is going to kill him. Now at this point they have no idea how to actually handle this kind of thing, but Cyclops knows that there's something different about Asani, because she came here from the far future to help out. And she says, listen, in my future, we have a way to help him, but the only way to help him is to take him into the future. Now for Cyclops, he's wondering, will she bring him back? And she says no. Like, he has to say goodbye to his son to hopefully save his life. And maybe down the road, there could be a possibility he'll meet his son, even though he already has, because Cable has been around for a good while by this point in Marvel Comics. And so Cyclops realized this is the only way to save the young boy's life. And so he has to let him go into the far future. Now, by this point right here, there were so many different books that kind of told what happened to Nathan once he arrived in that future. And we're going to cover those books down the road in our coverage in X-Men Comics. Now, the last page of this book, we do see the Watcher was watching everything. And apparently, to the Watcher, he agreed with what Cyclops did as a way to save young Nathan. And so the book ends on that note. Now, with the book ending right here, we then dive into the next crossover, which is the Muir Island Saga, and that should come very soon on my channel. But with that being said, this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.